You're listening to 710 KURV along with Roxanne Garcia. I'm Davis Rankin. We want to talk with a lawyer for the Association of Texas Professional Educators. His name is Paul, and we want to talk about something which has been in the news a lot lately. It seems to me there's been a real spurt, but I don't know if that means anything other than there's been a real spurt of school districts having to contend with or deal with teachers or employees who are accused of some sort of sexual impropriety. From what my memory is, typically having sex with underage girls somehow, some way. So the accusation that someone has been carrying on is devastating, quite obviously, and criminal perhaps. And we want Paul to help us, because it occurred to me, Paul, that I said to Roxanne, I have friends who are teachers, and that's one of the reasons they say you join a professional organization is to have a lawyer who will come defend you. Sometimes it's because they're at odds with the local school district, but they want that legal help to be there in case. Thank you for joining us. And how often, in your experience, does this kind of thing come up in Texas?
Well, and it's one of those things that's hard to quantify because obviously one case is one case too often. If you look at the raw numbers, and I couldn't give you an actual raw number, that when you compare it to the number of students and educators in the state, it obviously is a very, 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 very small percentage. But like I said, if you're talking about one or two cases, that is a serious problem because you shouldn't have even one or two cases.
Yeah, you don't want. I mean, the whole idea is you don't want predatory teachers, I suppose.
Absolutely.
Taking advantage of their position.
No. And there is never a situation where engaging in a sexual relationship between a teacher and a student is an appropriate thing to do. I don't think there's anyone
going to defend that.
That would really debate that.
What's the age of consent in Texas for sexual relations?
Well, the age of consent for sexual relations is 17. However, and this is one of those situations where it's been recognized that things are a little different for educators because there is actually a particular provision in the Texas Penal Code that makes it a felony for teachers to engage in a sexual relationship with a student at their district, even if that student is 18.
At their district?
Because of that, at their district, yes.
What if
it's another district?
What if they're doing it with a student, regardless of age, at another district?
Well, like I said, this is 18. We're talking about a situation where the usual rules of who an adult is don't apply. Even if the student is an adult, it's still considered a crime.
And you're talking about felonies. Is this a Class C felony?
It's a 2.
Oh, so you're looking at state prison time.
Yes, yes.
State penitentiary.
No, it is
time.
taken very seriously.
What constitutes sexual activity? And I'm not trying to thrill people, but mashing on somebody,
it is basically,
I
will be honest with you, it is anything that you would imagine constituting sexual activity. There is a laundry list, and it's one we probably don't need to get into on the radio, but it is anything that you would picture as possibly being sexual activity is considered sexual activity.
From like small flirting text messages to something completely...
Well, we're talking about physical. In this case, we're talking about physical. Now, I will tell you that even what's called in our area, what's called a quote-unquote romantic relationship, and that comes from the State Board for Educator Certification and their rules. A teacher can lose their job and lose their career simply by engaging in behavior that hasn't become physical, but it looks like perhaps it might at some point in the future.
Flirting, as Roxanne said.
Yes, flirting.
But that doesn't get you a cell at Huntsville.
No. That's
not
the case.
We're talking with Paul, who is a lawyer for the Association of Texas Professional Educators.
Paul, what if, just we're talking about these relations, what if a student wrongfully accuses a teacher?
Yeah, let's get to the meat.
At that point, what happens to the teacher? How does that teacher, I guess, get their name back or their reputation
back? Well,
and
that is a very difficult place for an educator at this point. For very understandable reasons. You mentioned before that the number of reported cases has gone up There's probably a lot of different reasons for that. One aspect of that is that these cases are taken very seriously, and any allegation is generally, and of course, there can be exceptions at what an individual person does, but I will tell you, my experience has been that any allegation is taken very seriously at this point, and because of the sensitivity to both the history of allegations perhaps not being taken as seriously as they should have over decades previously, wanting to protect, the very understandable idea of wanting to protect our students, our children in the state. There's nothing official about guilty until proven innocent in these kinds of cases, but just because of the circumstances, it can be very difficult for a teacher who has been wrongfully accused of inappropriate relationship to prove their innocence, even though that's the position that they're oftentimes put into.
A teacher can only teach with a certificate from the state, essentially permission from the state. Am I right?
It gets much more detailed, and probably far more detailed than what your audience would be interested in hearing. Because there are alternative certification programs where you actually do have a certificate. You just haven't gone through the whole process of getting a full regular certificate. You have what's called a probationary certificate. So you do have educators in the classroom who do not have a lot of experience in this situation, dealing with the kinds of things that educators do have to deal with, which is one of the things that my association is trying to work on, and trying to make sure that all the teachers in our classes do get the training that they need to, so that they understand what the rules are and
don't be hitting on students. I mean, how much training does that take?
Well, and that's a very good point, and that is a very good point. Honestly, one of the things we say every chance we get, and I'll be honest with you, one of the reasons I wanted to come on this afternoon is here's another opportunity. Every chance we get to say, look, this is an inappropriate thing to do and a very, very dangerous thing to do, and it is very dangerous even to put yourself in a position of having a question.
Should they act like Billy Graham used to? Doors open, never meeting with a single woman.
Well, teachers today are put in a very awkward position because number one, from the one hand, you have the potential of having a false allegation made against you, and on the other hand, teachers, of course, are told that in order to be successful teachers, of course, you need to be able to reach the students. You want to, deal with them on a personal level in order to be able to reach them, to teach them what it is that you're trying to teach them. We are, teachers, public education, of course, is one very important aspect of molding our children into being the adults that we want them to be. And, that takes some, we don't want automatons in the classroom either. We don't want them being our children taught by computers. But at the same time, like I said, it is a very, very narrow walk that they have to make sure that they can be successful teachers by reaching the kids, but trying not to put themselves in a position where even an allegation can be made against them.
I want to know, sometimes a lot of teachers, I guess, when this does happen, they're accused of the same crime, but they're one can get fired and then the other one gets suspension with pay or without pay. And I don't know, how do they determine how that works?
Well, and basically what teachers in Texas are employed under a contract. And so that requires the district to go through a process of determining whether or not this teacher has done something wrong. Again, we don't, we do want the teacher, we want some fairness, obviously, in situation. We certainly want the teacher to be able to tell their side of the story. We want both the administration and the police, since police are obviously regularly involved in these kinds of situations, to actually do a legitimate investigation to determine objectively what it is that actually did occur. And in that process, one thing that districts often do is place an educator on what's called administrative leave, which is basically they send them home, say we will get a statement from you, that police may get a statement from you, but we will let you know what it is that we're going to do. That process can be very quick. That process can take more time, depending, of course, on the individual situation.
We are out of time, and we've got to let you go, or bounce, as we say in the talk radio business. But we'll put you in the Rolodex and perhaps call you another time.
Okay.
It's been very good. Thank you very much,
Thank you so
Paul.
much,
Paul.
Paul.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yes, sir. Paul is with the Association of Texas Professional Educators. He is one of their lawyers. And you're listening to 710 KURV.